Starting now.
So welcome to our little casual as we work hangout. We're going to talk a little bit about some design stuff, some color stuff, removing some colors from the block editor and the WordPress design library work that Noah and I understand Boy has been working on in Figma, and I might demo a little pull request as I work on it and hopefully explain why we're removing colors. And mostly I think it's an opportunity to share the work. And if you have any questions during, please feel free to interrupt and ask. As a reminder, please feel free to turn video on or off, audio on or off, and just let's have some fun here. And we're gonna recap at the end, and I think Noah wanted to start with a little Figma stuff. Let me see if you need to be allowed to
Sure.
screen share. Are you able to, or do I need to?
I think you'll need to add allow me permission.
All right. Share screen. This is 2020, figuring it out as we go. For now, I'm gonna make you the host, and hopefully that will allow you to share your screen. Does that work?
It works great.
I could have sworn there was a button I could have pressed, but
Awesome. I guess I'll need to keep tabs on if anybody's trying to join here too.
You can just push it back to me when you're ready.
Okay, cool. Hi, so yeah, I've been working through, and Boy as well, who's on the call, have been working through a direction for the design library. I'm just going to give a little background here. So if you're not familiar with the design library, essentially right now it's just a collection of styles and design patterns we use within WordPress. And the reason it exists is that at a fundamental level, obviously provides us a good reference base. So if you need to go in and like double check that you're using the right color, or that you have a right icon, if you're developing a plugin, you want to use one of our like icon libraries, you can just come on in and grab that and use it for your project. It also affords us the opportunity to take existing styles and design patterns and explore new ideas. So like if you want to come in and you're looking at the block editor, the block toolbar, and you're wanting to propose a change to something, or try to like mess around with it and see if you can come up with something a little bit more, for your particular use case, you can iterate on a component inside of there. And then using a tool like Figma, which is what you're looking at now, that's the tool we use to update and manage the library. That's accessible from a browser, allows us an easy way to share those ideas and propose them, which we'll talk about here in a quick bit. If you haven't used Figma before, it's relatively simple to get started. Inside of this library, I've revamped the getting started documentation here, but there's a column in here for getting started with Figma. So if you're not as familiar with it, there's some helpful links to kind of get you on your way. And then it's also great in the sense that it's in the browser. So it's sort of like this Google Docs style collaboration in real time. So you can see other folks are inside the library viewing this as well. It's really cool because like as you're working in it, you see 7 other people inside, has this really nice positive community ownership vibe, which is really the point of all of this. A couple of quick things. So I'm going to share this link in the Zoom chat.
I also shared it. I took the liberty, but
Thank you.
You can share it again because I shared with view permissions. I think yours may be with edit permissions as well. I can't recall the.
Let me know. Yeah, let me know, because I know we currently have permissions based on that Figma link. And so if you don't have permission for some reason to view that file, you can DM me in the WordPress Slack at Noah. And I'll make sure that you're, just DM me your email address. I'll make sure you get added to it.
Perfect. Perfect.
I'm also going to drop another link. This is a blog post I wrote on the .org website outlining the direction that this library has taken, and a little context to some like a little backstory and some context around a lot of that stuff. So prior to this library, I'm going to go into when you're at it. By the way, we have our company, like the WordPress.org, has a lot of the design assets that are used across different types of projects. But there's one inside of here that you'll find called libraries, and that's where all of these things live. You'll notice we have several things in here. The ones that are in this standard WordPress blue are the older libraries. These are the ones that we're taking these pieces from and bringing into the new co-located design library, which is just going to be one file. So yeah, we had those three. There were pain points with these, largely around the lack of rigor of keeping it updated, especially with the speed at which the block editor has been evolving. So you go in there, you'll see things that were outdated like a couple of weeks ago that weren't getting updated. And it's sometimes difficult if you're trying to work on something, you're not really sure which patterns are current and which ones aren't. So we turned these pain points into the goals of this new library, which are threefold. It was improving the integrity and structure. So basically just build things well and make it easy to find what you're looking for. Improve that consistency and trust. So if you go in there, you know that it's kept up to date, things are still relevant. And then really the big thing is like the workflows for how we all contribute to the design of WordPress. So taking those first two I just mentioned, and outlining processes for getting ideas to the door. And then, like I just mentioned, like bringing all this down to a single source of truth was a big part of this. So I'm just going to go through what we've been working on with the design library. As I mentioned, there's the getting started. I think that, this can continue to grow. I've updated for how you contribute components to make it a little bit more up to date with some current processes, especially not just in Figma, but also within GitHub as well, making sure that what we have in GitHub matches what we have in Figma and vice versa. We brought styles into its own page. We've updated these two colors, which we'll talk about here soon. Bring in typography. We're also going to start bringing in some of the grids as well, some of the systems that have been introduced. That'll all live under styles. Icons has been a fun one, bringing in some of the newer block editor icons, which you'll find over here on the left. That's sort of our preferred library right now. We have the middle ground, which is the material icons, which is probably the second preference we have. And then toward the right there, we have those dash icons, which we're all familiar with, the older icons of WordPress. You can click that link and that library is also available. Components is sort of like the big one. The way that we approach this is, since the block editor is sort of the big focus right now, is wanting to start there and getting that up to speed. Since if you were to look back at the older library files, those were the most outdated. WordPress core has had changes, but not as fast as Gutenberg, obviously. So we wanted to be able to start here and build those components up and get what we needed there. And then we're going to take those core styles and also bring those back inside of here too. So we have those all together. That's something that I'll be working on the next week or so, is getting WP admin back into this. Components are, you have the styles, which sort of set the color and general look and feel of something. Then the components take that and turn those into elements. And so like you have the buttons and the little building blocks, and then you go to views, which are taking these pieces and bringing in.
Quick question,
yeah, go ahead.
So regarding getting WP admin in, what is the plan actually? Is that the discussion that we had yesterday in the design meeting?
That was part of it. So like right now we just want to be able to get the current pieces of WP admin in here. And then I think the conversation for yesterday's design meeting was, how do we start migrating some of these Gutenberg styles into WP admin? I know that's a longer conversation in an iterative process, but at least getting current state of WP admin in here.
Okay, as it reflects today.
As it reflects today, and then we're gonna make sure that we keep
Makes
that
sense.
level of rigor. Yeah, yeah. And then views are just taking these little blocks and building it together into actual views. So as someone who wants to come in here and riff on a design of some sort, like you have pretty much that stage where you can make it look like you're working within the WordPress environment. And then I'm just like this thing here is just where I'm going to bring in some of the core stuff and then reorganize this so it's very clear about what's being used in admin versus what's being used in Gutenberg, because there are obviously discrepancies between the two right now. But yeah, that's sort of been the where things are at this point. But I definitely wanted to keep the pulse on this because we want to keep this as relevant as possible with what's happening. The two biggest challenges, and I think this probably leads into what Joen's going to talk through, is I think the biggest thing, especially as somebody new like myself coming in and trying to understand which colors are being used, because if you go back to the older libraries, you'll see several different versions of blue. One of the blues I think is called like WordPress blue hover, which is actually used as a resting state, not a hover state. And so like there was a lot of these little inconsistencies and discrepancies that were really confusing. And then there were also several palettes that were introduced and some of the new Gutenberg stuff is introduced. So, and you look at all of that, there's just a slew of colors, a slew of grays. And it's really hard to know where it goes, which goes where, where they go. So that was one of the challenges. And then obviously just making sure that we are clearly defining what currently right now is WP admin style versus the Gutenberg style and how all that coexists together.
Are we?
Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, are we doing the audit, or we are still doing the audit of what variations of colors we have? Do we have it documented somewhere?
Go ahead.
I may get a little bit into that because there's a reduction process that I'm making that I can get into when Noah's ready. Unless you had anything to add.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to move forward. I just want to let one little thing is that this isn't something that I maintain, or this is ours. And so I want people to contribute to this as much as possible. One thing I didn't cover was the proposals page, and you can see we have some folks here already starting to work through some of the newer things that will need to go through a process of review. So as you work through something, again, all of this is outlined in the getting started, but as you work through an idea, you can drop those here on the proposals page, and anybody who has the access to kind of review this sort of thing, which is also outlined and get started, can go through there and comment on it and discuss those back and forth. But obviously I want as many people in here building this together. That's the only way that this stays relevant and keeps consistent. And if you have any comments on it, design channel in the WordPress Slack, we'll make sure that those get addressed.
Sounds good. I reclaimed host, so hopefully I can share my screen now. We're experimenting with Zoom here. We may not be the foremost expert on Zoom, but let me see if I can get this working. Let me move you over on the other screen, and then I think this should work. What do you see now? Do you see my VS Code desktop?
Yeah.
Cool. It was the right screen I shared then. Glad to hear that. First, I want to show you just bare bones that we have this file called _colors.scss, which is a list of a bunch of color variables we use in the block editor today. That's this one. This is the old version, and you can see there are 20 colors here, not counting white and black. Then we have these semi-transparent ones, another 20 or so, and then 20 here. These are all sort of semi-opaque. We have like 10 blues and some extra blues. And I'm showing this because it's
Wow.
kind of messy. This could use a little systematizing.
Sure.
And more than anything, when you have this many colors, when someone is building something new for the block editor, they're going to, which gray am I going to use? They're going to look at this and be confused. So I've done a bunch of pull requests to reduce that. Just pare down the amount of colors, reduce the variables to as few as we can deal with, and remove all the old ones so that when we have something, we have fewer choices and you're more likely to choose the right one. This is the current status, what you're looking at here. So there are 6 grays and white and black. This list is likely going to expand a little bit, but for now, I think it's just a healthy exercise to have as few as possible, and then we can expand as needed. It needs a lot of systematizing. I've seen some of the amazing work Q, who I think joined here as well, has been working on. For the time being, we're just gonna go with as few as possible and then expand later. And more importantly, this is, these are variables. So we can change the properties of these in one fell swoop if need be later on. So if you'll permit me, and please always feel free to interrupt me with questions, I'm gonna actually jump into making a pull request to remove some of these, because until we remove these, it's hard to expand on the remaining ones. So I'm just gonna jump right in. I use Visual Studio Code, VS Code, as my IDE. I like it a lot. I have my file in the center here. I have the very same open. I have my terminal here below. I use GitHub in the terminal most of the time. I have many friends who use the GitHub app. It's a very good app, but I like doing it here. Usually I always start with a good git pull. Can you read the text, or do I need to zoom, or is this okay? Let's see if I can.
Yeah, it's
zoom.
fairly readable at 100%.
I zoomed a little bit. We're going to see if that works. So always npm run dev. I obviously have my environment running. Running reasonably well already. I usually have one terminal with the build process, and then another one here where I can check out a branch, update, retire colors. There we go. We now created a new branch on the Gutenberg, the block editor repository, and any change we make here, we can commit to that branch and make a pull request. So it's actually quite simple, but I'm showing this both to show you, to sort of remove some of the mystery around this stuff, but also just to show you that this is the work that goes on. I'm going to start with dark gray 700. I'm going to retire that and see if we can remove this one. So I copied that one, and then let me see if I copied it right. Command Shift F, I can then search for that variable. I search globally because I search in all of these files at once to see any file that references this variable, because those are the files I need to update. Some of these are called native. I'm not going to touch those right now. That's for the mobile app that compiles into iOS and Android apps. But I am going to touch the other ones here. Here's one, color-dark gray 700 by Daniel Richards a year ago. Add block directory to the inserter menu. So let's actually look at the block directory. I happen to have, this is the rendered environment right here. If we go into the inserter, the block directory just launched with WordPress 5.5. A big congrats on that. If you search your waves here, you should get a block that I worked on called the waves block. Let's open the inspector and see if we can find this class name because I think it's used here. I'm just going to search here in the inspector, zoom in, Command F, I paste, and I search for this one, item, header, body, footer, item. So this one uses the old gray. You can see it right here in the sidebar here. So that's for the body text here. That doesn't need to be dark gray 700. That should be the same color as this. So you can see immediately why it makes sense to retire this one in favor of the text color, which is, let's actually make a comment here. Default text color. Let's copy gray 900 and put it in place of dark gray 700. I save, I go back to the browser, I reload, and I'm running out of zoom time. I need to upgrade in a moment, and I open the inserter, I search for waves, and here we go. This text is now text colored. So to quote Bob Ross, that's all there is to it. You can do it if you want to. And just by removing one gray, we add just a little bit of consistency and a little bit of simplicity to the whole thing, because there's no reason that was gray 900. So fewer colors reduction makes this, ties the whole room together like a good rug. So we're going to continue that effort for just a little bit more. I have a couple of minutes before I need to upgrade the zoom. Let's look here. Components.button.block editor types list item. All right, let's search for this one in the editor. I have a feeling that this is part of the inserter as well. Let's open this one. We search for the list item. There we go. Okay, so it's actually this text. So as you can see, there's a black icon and a black paragraph text here below. They're not the same color. They probably should be. So once again, we just replace this one with gray 900. And you can see this search list dynamically updates on the side to reflect that I eliminate this deprecated variable. Let's reload like so and open the inserter, and it's barely perceptible. It's probably not even coming through the compression of zoom here, but this text is now the same color as the icon. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. So that's another one removed, and it just adds a little bit more simplicity. I'm going to continue that effort in a moment, but I might need to upgrade this Zoom call. I should probably stop screen sharing while I do that. So let me see if I can stop that. Alternatively, how do I upgrade my Zoom? Noah, do you have anything to add to the reducing colors, or do you want to start a little bit on how that ties into the colors you're adding in the Figma file? I need to also admit a couple here.
Yeah, other than just, I think before we had that same problem where the variables just need to be those need to be updated across Figma, because the same way, let me see if I can't share screen. But basically it's the same situation. Like you can set those same global colors inside of Figma. And then as you're building components, especially as someone wants to come in and contribute something, like being able to use those global colors and global text styles to make sure that it's all consistent, similar to the way it is with the code base.
I made you the host now. I wonder if that gives us more than less than a minute on the Zoom call. I do apologize. I think I could swear these used to be 45 minutes for the free tier. I may have to close down and make another Zoom call. This is all pandemic life, but hopefully you'll realize the casual nature of the work that is going on here, and at least appreciate the honesty of it.
Joen, in the meantime, if you could post the link to the file which you were referring to, _colors.scss.
Do you want the link to it? Yes, sure, of course. I will.
Yeah. Got a link. I'm not sure if it's correct. You could just check it.
Yes. Here's the link to the color variable thing.
Great, sir. Thank you.
I think we'll probably, if you'll forgive me, close down this recording and open another one so I can continue.
Let's do it.
Joining us once more as we continue. We're going to actually hang out like this at some point again, and I'll be sure to have the premium account all ready to go for the next time. So welcome back. If you want to see more pull request goodness, I will jump right in. And by the way, please do feel free with any questions you have. That's why we're here, where it's one of the reasons we're here. So always feel free to interrupt. Let's see, we just retired another dark gray 700. I'm just going to continue that. So this one is WP block button link. So this _colors.scss file should be for block UI. Let me move to this one. It should be for, let me see here. There we go. It should be for these buttons and this button and this UI stuff. It shouldn't be for actual blocks. So let's see what happens if we insert button block. Hello world. So that dark gray there is actually used. That's the dark gray 700 here. And we probably shouldn't change that one to one of the new grays in this pull request. That should probably be a separate pull request that redesigns that button, because that's the default button in the vanilla styles here. So I'm actually just gonna take the value of this one and bake it in like so, because there shouldn't necessarily be any connection between block UI and content. Arguably, that's up for conversation, but because it's up for conversation, it seems worth doing that in a separate pull request. So if I do that, change that, and just bake the color in and reload, we have the very same gray as before, but that's fine. At least now we can almost retire dark gray 700. Let's see, it remains here in the files block. I would assume that's the same issue here. File. Okay, let's just trust that the button is the same. It has a little download button, so I'm just gonna do this one, replace it like so. And that's yet another one. Let's look here. That's in form token field token. Okay, that's a good one. I think that's in tags. So let's look at the tags. Let me just check if anyone's in the waiting room waiting to get in. I wonder, there are a few. I do apologize to those. Omit all. I'll also make Noah the host again, so you can just admit them as I forget them. I do apologize. Let's open tags here and continue the effort. Hello, comma, world. Okay, so what here is dark gray 700? Let's search again. It's that one, right? That one has what? It has color of, make some space here. Do you all know the inspector? How cool it is? but how hard it is to find the resize handles. Here it is. So it's this one. Let's see what happens when we change it. It's the text here. How do you all feel about me making that the default text color? Because that's what I'm feeling right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. That's gray 900. It's a good opportunity to just, you know, add a little contrast when you see it. This file, right? Like so. And so it is reduced a little bit more. Let's just verify this works by reload. Maybe let's save.
It's funny you're targeting the token, because I have a question whenever you're at a stop.
Please do. I can't multitask, but I like to pretend I can.
One of the things I did notice, I put in a PR for this, but if you were to click and focus in on the remove button,
yes,
you can see that it's clipping. That's an accessibility issue.
Ugh.
And what I thought was, like, right now on the parent container, there's an overflow hidden. Can you change that to max width of 100%?
Yeah, let me just resize this one again. Let's see if we can slipstream a little fixin' with that one. So we do this one and we focus, and now we can see the focus without like tabbing in there. So this just needs to be inset, right? There you go.
Yeah.
Let's actually see if we can.
But
So that's the generic focus style here. So maybe that should not be inset. This is a little live debugging.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Q. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is a challenge when you're working with arbitrary component nesting in this fashion. So the button in this manner, it can predict whether or not the parent is using some sort of clipping mechanism, in this case overflow hidden. So it doesn't know how to accommodate its shadow to fit that. And that's kind of, now you're kind of trying to play cat and mouse, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe if I use button in this one very particular case, let me try modifying the box shadow to be whatever. And then maybe later on that fix will now be a bug for something else.
Yeah, exactly. And as you can see, the fix here looks very, very much like Noah said exactly, to just remove the overflow hidden. But I'm not going to do that in this PR. I'm not going to slipstream it in because I promised Riyadh I wouldn't. And also because this has to be something you can test separately and discuss separately. Because as Q says, this is likely to break in some completely arbitrary way that I can't predict. Oh, there you go. You can see my screen. I have to remember that, the beautiful chat here. So I'm not going to do that here, but there's a pull request waiting on anyone interested to just remove that overflow hidden, just that one line of code. I can even show you how I would do it if I were to make that a separate one. I'd search for this.
Well, there is I do have a PR out for that.
There you go.
You take the overflow hidden away, but the problem that is like that helps with truncation. So in longer labels or longer tags, that thing is just extend out. So if you did a max with 100%, it seemed to be fine on a longer scenario. Yeah,
there you go. See, that's exactly to Q's point and to the instinct that this can break in unexpected ways. So let's actually see what happens if we put that one back. That was on the button, right? This button.
I think you had it before.
Never mind. Let's actually remove the gray 900. Because I think we actually have this. So if I remove this one now, this compile box down here should not throw up.
So speaking of which, Joen, I left a comment in the previous message chat session before we fired up this new one.
I'm sorry.
And that is, oh no, that's okay. And that is the tricky thing about changing, refactoring, deprecating, and or removing these variables is that these variables are exported as base styles, like WordPress base styles. That means that other plugins compile their styles.
Yeah.
So if we modify it on our end or remove it, it may disrupt their, third-party block or plugin or whatever it is, or it could even break it. So that is a challenge in working with these Sass variables in this way. Not only that, I mean, they can also easily override these on their end.
Oh yeah.
With predictable code on our side.
I can answer this.
Yeah, sure.
I had some thoughts as well, but please go ahead, Riyadh.
I think there's two kinds of APIs, basically. There's the one that ship with WordPress and the ones that don't. And so when the ones that ship with WordPress, I think you're right. Like, we cannot change things easily. We will break things. And like, if third-party plugin relies on it, when it upgrades WordPress, it will break. But for these Sass variables, I think they don't ship in WordPress. They do ship in a package, in an NPM package.
Yeah.
So it should be fine to do breaking changes, but because upgrading NPM package is it's something you do explicitly and not implicitly. So we can do breaking changes and change the number, like the version number of the NPM package. And I think that's the way we do it.
Yeah, I agree. That's the correct strategy. I was just pointing this out as this is a potential. This could break something that we don't know about if we just look at Gutenberg in isolation.
Oh yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
And it's a really potent point, because it applies to almost any component we do here. Like if we have to redesign the toggle and it changes behavior in some way, or if we change the verbiage to be shorter, like instead of this one saying more tools and options, maybe it just says more, so that when the show text labels option lands, it doesn't take up half the screen. There's always going to be some of those changes that are going to be painful, and we have to have some sort of empathy for how that gets rolled out. And I think Riyadh's point is well made, that we have to be clear about what's going on. But in my opinion, we also have to have sort of the north star of code quality and good design and good accessibility, good all that stuff. That doesn't discount any of what you said. It kind of works right into it. In glorious agreement here, that we kind of have to do this, even though it's painful, because I regret helping, because you can see here 3 years ago I helped make these variables. It says so right here in pull request number 964. So this is my fault, and I'm helping cleaning it up. But
I don't think it's your fault.
Well, fault is the wrong word.
It's one of those things where it's like the spirit of what you're doing is correct. I think, like, the vision and the goal is just it'll be a little bit more painful, in the beginning before it gets better. Yeah. It's like a Nike swoosh in terms of like pain versus reward. It sucks for a bit, and then it'll go bam. It'll be great later.
Yeah. Well, we have to keep improving, and I believe we are. And I think that's a good North Star, so to speak. I'm on to this is dark gray 600. I think I might. So long as there's really good conversation like this, I'll continue with this PR, but please do interrupt and ask any questions adjacent to this. And Noah, if you want to show any design tool stuff, maybe it would be a good time to pivot to that, because we've already been going for 40 minutes here.
A quick question. So I don't see the deprecated colors comment in the file which I'm looking at on GitHub. Is that still in the pull request which you have right now, and which will come in some time?
Do you have this link?
Yes, I'll paste it again in the.
Right. Oh, do you mean the old one? I'll send this one with the old colors.
Yes. So our intent is to remove all the deprecated colors one by one, and then
make a pull request. Yes.
The new ones, right? So I don't see the deprecated colors file. Which one is that exactly?
Here, let me send you the link. What I did to find this old version was to click the history button here for the colors
got it.
file, and then I can see every change made to that color file. And I just went back in time to where all the colors were, and I got this link, which I shall drop in chat in a moment. Let me see. Chat. Wow. There you go.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Noah, did you have anything?
It depends. Like, I don't know how curious anybody is around working within Figma, or if anybody here would be interested in doing some design work in Figma, but I could definitely show through like some of the ways that I've set up some of these components to help you went along.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Let me
share the screen.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right, so I've taken advantage of some of Figma's newer features, which is sort of like auto layout. That's sort of the big thing now. And what that means is basically you can build a component or any sort of container and it will scale depending on what you're looking to do. So for example, I could take this toolbar, and if I didn't want this icon here, I could just drag that out. You can see that the container automatically conforms to the space. Similarly, I could just come in here and add additional ones. I've also set this up too, so all the icon libraries have been, minus dash icons, have been co-located in one area. And I've componentized each one of those icons, meaning that you can access those anywhere with the file that has that library pulled in. You wouldn't see it here because this is the actual library, but if you're working within another file and you wanted to use the WordPress design library, you can go up here to Assets. There's a little book icon, and this is where you can pull in additional libraries, and that makes everything inside of this library accessible to you. But since I'm already in here, you're not going to see that. But what you could do is say, like, for example, all right, so I'm working on a block toolbar. I'm working on my own plugin, and I want to use the block toolbar, and I'm going to change this link to a bold. I don't know. So I could just double click into this icon. You'll see instance over here. So then I can click this drop down link. And if you have this library pulled in, you'll see this available as the WordPress design library. And you just sort of go down under icons, the primary, since that's the one we want people to use. Block type, I think this would probably be more of a, where's the, probably, oh yeah, it's a block type paragraph. So I can just change, actually I'm looking for bold, aren't I? So I can use the bold icon, and we'll just swap that out. Similarly, if I wanted to change the state and make this an active state, I can click on this as well. There's another thing with instance. This is an resting default state. I can click and make this pressed, which is the active. And now that's the active state. And then I just have to go back and swap that icon out. That's the one limitation within Figma is, I can't, unless I built out each one of these individually, which would take forever, you have to sacrifice that. So you have to come back in and swap out that icon again. But the auto layout, it's really cool. It works similarly inside of popover menus too. Let me go over here. Where I have options, and you can just easily add in options. I've also added the ability for you to take in like a separator and drop in a separator inside of here. And you can build out different sections within the popover as well. You just drag and move things around. The challenge here is like you want to add some of this to make it a lot easier, but what that does is it also adds complexity to these. So where you run into issues there is if you're designing something brand new that's not part of the standard pattern, you're going to have to what we call like detach from the component. So the component is built as a structure. And it kind of has set rules on what you can do inside of that. But if you're going to do something unconventional outside of that, you're going to want to detach that and come up with a new, you have to revise the layout. You can't work within those constraints anymore. by the way, anybody who wasn't on the call earlier, if you need access to this, this is like a permissions-based access. So if you need, or you want to be able to view or even make changes inside of here, direct message me in the WordPress design, or direct message me on the WordPress Slack at Noah, and I'll make sure I get your email in here so you can have access. But yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. You can see the states listed out here, but these states are also brought together under a single one. So if I wanted at any point to have a new button, like I mentioned before, I can go over here and change the state of that at any point. I could also come over here and change that into a secondary button if I wanted to. So all of this is tied together.
Beautiful.
Any questions?
I've been trying to figure out auto layout. I can pretty much get it to work, but I feel like it's almost as clunky as it is smart. I see you use auto layout in a few places. Does it help you avoid some of those have to detach situations? Or because it was my understanding that was one of the goals, that you wouldn't have to detach as many things because you could resize, but that may not have been correctly understood.
Two things. It's what I was mentioning before, where if you're doing unconventional things, like as soon as you do the auto layout, like it does allow for some flexibility. So I can add stuff inside of here. That's fine. But if you'll notice over here on auto layout, you have pretty much two options right now. You have vertical and horizontal, meaning that if you set a container to be horizontal, it's only going to accommodate on the X, on the X axis. And if you do it on the vertical, it's only going to accommodate it from a Y. So if you wanted to, for example, if I set this up as vertical, but I wanted maybe this first two to go side by side, that's not going to happen unless I create another container inside of that. That is horizontal, that allows for two things inside of the vertical list, if that makes sense. That's where it starts getting a little complex. The other part too is ideally I would like there would be an automated way for this to sync up with the actual code base so that these stay in alignment together. There's no solution out there like that. So like having to duplicate these and having to represent what's in the code is difficult, simply because I think I saw this recently with the inserter. So you can see auto layout also allows you a couple of other options where you can space around the sides, you can space around the top and bottom, and then you can space between elements. But the problem there is you can't set there's times in the code where maybe the top padding is maybe 4 pixels different from the bottom padding. You can't have that level of specificity right now with Figma because they have to be equal on either end. Yeah. Similarly, if I'm doing like an auto layout scenario and I want this to have the same padding on the top as I do the bottom, in the code, you technically have padding on the top, you don't have anything on the bottom. So having to reconcile those and have those be the exact same, that's the difficulty too, is keeping these.
Absolutely.
I want to chime in, like syncing, syncing Figma and code, that problem is not unique to WordPress components or open source or anything. Literally every company struggles with that, big or small. And there are some very smart companies in the world like Airbnb and so on who are trying to build automated tools to do these kinds of things, but the technology just isn't there yet. So the best way to do this is, unfortunately, for better or for worse, is to do it manually. And the quality of this comes from the care that people put in, whether you're a designer, developer, product person, whatever. We're all into this together to make this thing work.
100%.
Yeah.
And also at times, instead of using auto layout, we have to decide and use frames if we need to make things responsive. Let's say if we have to go down from laptop width to mobile resolution as such, we can then use the constraints which can then honor it and then scale it down. But that doesn't happen in auto layout. So I believe Figma team is still working on making auto layout responsive, which would be a great thing.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm hoping that they keep active on that, because
For sure. Were there any more questions? Otherwise, we're closing in on the hour here, and I feel like we've had some good fun here with a little Zoom challenge.
So, a quick question. So with regards to the spacing and the padding or margin that we are using, I hope that we have some reference for it, which, let's say when we are doing the design, okay, this is the standard 8 pixel spacing or multiples of 8 or whatever. And
Yes.
where is that?
So actually in that same base styles directory, I'll share a link in a moment. There are some grid units which are based on 8, but it's a start. And I think to align everything to a grid, we need, a more foundational approach. It's sort of, we have this vision of where we need to go, and then we have to pragmatically, work our way towards that. And at the same time, we probably also need a couple of things rethought. For example, there might be some work in the sidebar that Q could have fun with, for example, that could streamline some of this stuff. So I think in the meantime, with what's there, it's in that file I sent you, but it's probably something we can hopefully improve further.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
That's awesome. It was really fun hanging out with you folks today. Please, I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
everyone have a great rest of the day. Night.
Yes, we'll post
Bye.
a recap, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah,
Bye.
and you'll have to merge the videos.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye.